Imagine waking up in a world where the roads vanish, armies disappear, and the very idea of civilization feels like a memory. A world where fear rules the night, and hope must be rebuilt one village at a time. Like, subscribe, and write in the comments where you're watching from. The story of medieval Europe doesn't begin with glory, it begins with collapse. In 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire falls. The mighty structure that once connected millions, its armies, laws, aqueducts, libraries, is gone. What remains? Scattered kingdoms, ruined cities, empty marketplaces. Bandits roam the forests. Roads crack, trade disappears. To many, it feels like the world itself has ended. But history is never that simple. This wasn't just darkness. It was the beginning of a brutal transformation. Local warlords rise, each claiming land with sword and fear. People seek protection, not freedom. Thus is born the system we call feudalism, a pyramid of loyalty and power. At the top, fragile kings, below them, ambitious nobles. Below them, knights sworn to fight. And at the bottom, peasants tied to the land, paying with sweat, grain, and sometimes blood. Life is harsh, winter means hunger. Disease is constant, justice depends on whoever holds the sword. And above them all stands one force stronger than any king, the church. The church controls learning. The church crowns rulers. The church defines right and wrong in this world and the next. Monks copy ancient texts in candlelit rooms, preserving precious fragments of Greek and Roman knowledge. Monasteries become safe islands in a sea of chaos, yet power tempts everyone. Some bishops live like princes, wrapped in wealth and politics. Across the continent, new powers rise from unlikely places. From the forests of Gaul emerges a warrior king, Charlemagne. He fights, reforms, builds schools, spreads Christianity by force and persuasion. In the year 800, the Pope crowns him Emperor of the Romans, as if trying to stitch Rome back together. For a moment, unity seems possible. But history refuses to stand still. From the icy seas come the Vikings, fearless sailors, raiders, traders, settlers. From the east ride the Magyars. From the south, Muslim fleets dominate the Mediterranean. Towns burn, farmers hide. Lords build stronger castles. Stone replaces wood, walls grow taller. Watchtowers scan the horizon. Yet something unexpected happens. Amid all this violence, Europe begins quietly improving. Stronger plows dig deeper into tough soil. Windmills and watermills multiply. New farming methods increase harvests. More food means more people and more villages. Trade routes reopen, markets revive. Small towns become buzzing centers of life. The Middle Ages are not merely a time of darkness. They are a time of survival, adaptation, and painfully slow rebirth. And the forces shaping the next centuries, faith, war, trade, ideas, are just beginning to move. Because soon, pilgrims will march, knights will ride east, kings will challenge popes, and ordinary people will fight for a voice in a world built to silence them. This is only the beginning of the 1,000-year journey. Picture the horizon blazing with fire, long wooden ships sliding through the mist, dragon heads carved on their prows, and warriors leaping ashore with axes ready. Europe thinks the world is ending again, but destiny is more complicated. The Vikings come like a storm. From Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, they master the seas in sleek longships, fast, flexible, built to glide up rivers as easily as across oceans. They hit without warning, monasteries burn, silver is stolen, villages are wiped out. To terrified monks, these raiders seem like demons. But the truth is far richer. The Vikings aren't only killers. They are explorers, traders, settlers, and brilliant engineers. They reach Iceland, Greenland, and even North America, long before Columbus is even imagined. They build towns, marry local people, convert to Christianity, and slowly become part of Europe's fabric. Violence brings destruction, but it also reconnects isolated regions through trade and travel. At the same time, another force tightens its grip: faith. Christianity weaves deeper into daily life. Birth, marriage, law, kingship, war, all framed as part of God's plan. Priests preach obedience. Popes claim spiritual authority above all rulers. Relics, saints, miracles, hope becomes both spiritual and political. But faith can also be used as a weapon. In 1095, Pope Urban II makes a call that echoes through history: take up the cross, march to the Holy Land. God wills it, the Crusades begin. Knights, peasants, thieves, merchants all join. Some driven by faith, others by greed, adventure, fear of hell, or promises of land. They march across continents, empires collide. Jerusalem becomes the center of a holy storm. Blood spills on all sides, Christians, Muslims, Jews, and countless innocents. Yet even here, history refuses to be simple. Crusaders return not only with stories, but with knowledge. From the Islamic world come advanced ideas in medicine, mathematics, astronomy, architecture, philosophy. Libraries grow. Scholars translate Arabic and Greek works. Europe slowly begins to think beyond superstition and fear. Meanwhile, cities rise. Venice, Genoa, Florence, Paris, buzzing centers of trade and politics. Stone cathedrals stretch toward the heavens, covered with stained glass that tells stories to those who cannot read. Universities emerge in places like Bologna and Oxford. Students argue about theology, science, law, and logic. Questions, dangerous questions, begin to appear. Why does power belong to kings? Why does the church control knowledge? How does the universe truly work? But medieval life is always balanced on a knife's edge. While scholars debate, peasants still struggle to survive, knights still fight for land, and kings still dream of empires. The church grows wealthier, sometimes corrupt, sometimes compassionate, always powerful. And beneath the surface, conflict simmers. Popes versus emperors, kings versus nobles, rich towns versus struggling countryside. Europe is becoming more connected, but also more unstable. Because the next chapter will bring not only wars and rebellions, but a disaster so great that it will reshape society, belief, and power forever. A disaster carried not by armies, but by tiny invisible killers. Imagine living in a world where loyalty can be bought, betrayal is always one meal away, and every stone castle hides secrets that could change the fate of entire kingdoms. As Europe grows richer, something dangerous happens. Ambition expands. Feudal lords who once merely defended their lands now dream of ruling more. Kings attempt to gather power into their own hands. Everyone wants more soldiers, more taxes, more control. The landscape becomes a chessboard. Castles rise across hills and rivers, not just homes, but fortresses. Thick walls, towers, moats, iron gates. They dominate valleys, intimidate travelers, and remind peasants exactly who rules them. Inside, life isn't like fairy tales. Cold rooms, smoke-filled halls. Political marriages. Children raised not for happiness, but for alliances. Every feast is a negotiation. Every guest might be a spy. The knights, symbols of medieval glory, train endlessly. Armor clanks, war horses thunder. They swear loyalty, speak of honor and chivalry, but war is rarely honorable. Raids burn fields, villagers flee. Crops are destroyed, not armies. Starvation becomes a weapon. The poor pay the highest price. Across the Channel, one kingdom becomes a battlefield of ideas and power, England. In 1066, William the Conqueror invades from Normandy, bringing new laws, castles, and French-speaking elites. Over the next centuries, English kings struggle against rebellious nobles and ambitious barons. Finally, in 1215, something remarkable happens. The nobles force King John to sign a document, Magna Carta. For the first time in medieval Europe, a king's power is legally limited. He must obey the law. He cannot simply tax, imprison, or punish at will. It is not democracy, not yet, but it plants a dangerous seed. Even the mightiest ruler must answer to rules. Meanwhile, France grows, divided by rival nobles and shaped by powerful monarchs, such as Philip II and later the Valois kings. Across Germany and Italy, the Holy Roman Empire remains a puzzle of competing lords, bishops, and free cities, all arguing about who truly rules. And then there are the endless wars. The 100 Years' War between England and France. Not one war, but a series of brutal conflicts stretching across generations. Castles fall, towns burn, peasants fight, legends emerge, and like Joan of Arc, a teenage girl claiming divine visions, leading armies, and paying with her life. Power belongs to whoever can survive, but as rulers fight each other, something else is happening quietly in the background. Merchants grow wealthy, towns gain independence. Trade guilds control industries. Money begins to matter more than land. A new class rises, not knights, not peasants, not kings, but citizens. They build walls around cities, elect councils, and sometimes buy their freedom from local lords. With wealth comes influence, and with influence comes questioning. Why should nobles rule simply because of birth? Why should the church decide everything? Why are wars fought while ordinary people starve? These questions don't yet overthrow the medieval world, but they shake it. And soon that world will be shaken even harder. Not by kings, not by knights, not even by invaders, but by a terrifying plague that will sweep across continents and change everything. Imagine watching the people you love, your family, your neighbors, your friends, fall sick one by one, and there is nothing anyone can do. No doctor, no prayer, no escape. 1347. A ship arrives in Europe carrying grain, rats, and fleas. No one notices at first. A cough, a fever, a strange swelling under the skin, then death. The disease spreads like wildfire, city to city, port to port, road to road. Later, we will call it the Black Death, likely a form of bubonic plague. In just a few years, as many as 1 out of every 2 people in some regions simply vanish. Whole villages are abandoned, fields rot, church bells ring nonstop, funerals morning and night. People search desperately for answers. Some believe it is God's punishment. Others blame strangers, minorities, travelers, or witches. Doctors try strange cures, like bloodletting, herbs, charms, but nothing works. Gravediggers cannot keep up. Priests fear entering sick houses. Parents leave their children. Children leave their parents. The world feels cursed, and yet, inside this horror, society begins to transform. Because when so many die, the value of life changes. For centuries, peasants were trapped to the land, cheap labor with little power. But after the plague, there simply aren't enough workers anymore. Suddenly, peasants can demand wages, negotiate, walk away from abusive lords. Some move to cities seeking freedom and opportunity. Lords panic, kings attempt to freeze wages. Laws are passed to force workers back to the fields, but the genie will not go back into the bottle. People realize without workers, there is no kingdom. Without ordinary people, there is no power. Rebellions erupt across Europe, in England, France, Italy, and beyond. Many are crushed brutally, but the message is clear. The medieval order is cracking. Meanwhile, faith itself is shaken. The church, which promised protection and divine answers, cannot stop the plague. Some priests act heroically, others flee. Corruption becomes more obvious. Ordinary believers begin to question, why do popes live in luxury? Why do bishops act like princes? Where is God in all this suffering? Mystics appear. New religious movements rise. Some challenge official teachings. Some are labeled heretics. Tension grows between authority and conscience. And yet, in the long run, when something remarkable happens, survivors rebuild, cities reopen, trade returns, skills, crafts, and professions expand. In some places, governments improve sanitation. Medicine becomes more curious, less superstitious. Artists begin painting not only saints, but real human suffering and hope. The Black Death destroys, but it also forces Europe to rethink life, death, power, and purpose. From the ruins, people begin imagining a different future, a world where knowledge matters, where ideas spread, where individuals question and create. But before that future arrives, Europe must still endure more war, more revolts, and more dangerous inventions that will completely rewrite the way battles and politics are fought. Because gunpowder is coming, and with it, the end of the Age of Knights. Imagine the clash of steel, the roar of cannons, and the cries of men whose lives will never be the same. A world where castles fall, kings tremble, and ordinary people begin to claim a voice that was once forbidden. By the late Middle Ages, Europe is changing faster than ever. New weapons rewrite the rules of war. The longbow allows an archer to fell knights before they reach him. The crossbow pierces armor with terrifying precision. And gunpowder, first used in small cannons, begins to shake even the thickest stone walls. Castles, once symbols of invincibility, crumble under siege. Armies must adapt. Knights must rethink strategy. Kings invest in standing armies rather than relying on feudal levies. War is no longer about glory alone. It is about technology, money, and organization. At the same time, Europe experiences rebellion and revolt on a massive scale. The Peasants' Revolt in England, 1381, the uprisings in France, and other movements across the continent show that the lower classes will no longer silently bear oppression. While many of these revolts are crushed, the message is clear. Power is shifting. Labor is more valuable, cities more independent, and trade more influential. Speaking of trade, the economy transforms as well. Merchants rise as a powerful class. Towns become centers of wealth and influence. Guilds control industries, establish standards, and protect their members. Cities like Venice, Florence, and Bruges dominate trade networks stretching across the Mediterranean, the North Sea, and even as far as the Middle East. This wealth brings culture. Art flourishes, reflecting not only religious devotion but also human experience. Architecture reaches new heights. Gothic cathedrals stretch impossibly toward the sky, their stained glass windows telling stories of devotion, ambition, and fear. And while Europe fights, trades, and builds, rulers start centralizing power. Kings like France's Charles VII or England's Henry VII consolidate authority, reduce noble power, and create bureaucracies that can tax, raise armies, and enforce law more efficiently than feudal lords ever could. The world is becoming less medieval and more modern, slowly, painfully, and unevenly. Technology, economy, and politics converge to change the very structure of society. Gunpowder undermines feudal knights. Trade empowers merchants and towns. Revolts give common people leverage. Centralized kings begin to unify countries. And yet the medieval spirit lingers. Chivalry, faith, superstition, and loyalty still shape lives. Knights still ride, bishops still preach, and kings still scheme. But the seeds of the Renaissance are being planted. Europe begins to look beyond its borders, inspired by the knowledge returning from the East, mathematics, medicine, astronomy, rediscovered through trade and the Crusades. Artists and thinkers ask daring questions. Can humans create beauty? Can reason coexist with faith? Can the world be understood? These questions will explode in the coming centuries. But for now, Europe balances between old and new, chaos and order, darkness and enlightenment. The medieval world is not gone, it has evolved. And soon, the final transformation will arrive. A rebirth of art, science, and exploration that will forever change humanity. The end of the Middle Ages is at hand. Imagine a world standing on the edge of discovery, where old beliefs are cracking, new ideas are spreading like lightning, and humanity is preparing to step into an age that will redefine everything. By the 1400s, Europe is no longer the fragile, broken land that emerged after Rome fell. It has grown, scarred by war, reshaped by plague, tested by faith and ambition, but alive, curious, and restless. And the greatest change is yet to come. Knowledge returns. Scholars rediscover the works of ancient Greece and Rome. Philosophers read Aristotle and Plato again. They debate logic, nature, politics, and the human soul, not only through theology, but through reason. Then comes one invention that transforms everything: the printing press, created by Johannes Gutenberg. For centuries, books were copied by hand, slow, expensive, controlled mostly by monasteries. Now, suddenly, knowledge spreads faster than kings or popes can control. Ideas travel, questions multiply. Voices rise, people learn to read. Scientists observe more carefully. Priests, rulers, merchants, all feel the ground shifting beneath their feet. At the same time, art explodes with life. Thinkers begin focusing not just on heaven, but on humanity itself. Artists study muscles, faces, landscapes, movement. Paintings become windows into reality. Architecture becomes precise, balanced, and mathematical. This movement, the Renaissance, meaning rebirth, begins in Italian cities like Florence, Venice, and Milan, and soon stretches across Europe. But the Renaissance is not just beautiful, it is disruptive. It challenges older ways of thinking. If humans can understand the world, if knowledge can spread freely, if individuals matter, then maybe power should not belong solely to kings, nobles, and priests. Meanwhile, the world is literally expanding. Sailors and explorers begin crossing oceans. Trade routes open wider, maps grow larger. New lands, cultures, and peoples are discovered, often with tragic consequences, as conquest and colonization follow curiosity and ambition. The medieval world, once small, isolated, fearful, now stands face to face with a global reality. And yet, even as Europe changes, it does not simply escape its past. Feudal roots remain. Faith continues to guide millions. Old traditions survive alongside new ideas. History, after all, doesn't erase, it transforms. Looking back across the 1,000 years of medieval Europe, we see a story far richer than myths of darkness and ignorance. We see violence and rebirth, faith and doubt, plague and recovery, war and innovation, oppression and resistance. Medieval Europe was not a frozen age. It was a forge, burning, reshaping, testing, creating. Out of it came universities, laws, nations, literature, cathedrals, art, and philosophies that still influence the world today. And as the Middle Ages fade into the Renaissance, Europe prepares to enter new chapters filled with revolution, science, exploration, reform, and new conflicts that will again redefine humanity. Our journey through 1,000 years ends here, but history never really ends. It simply waits for us to ask the next question.